Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webcast, The Role of Operations Management in a Software-Defined Data Center. We are joined by Chandra Pathuri, Director, Product Manager, VMware Management Business Unit, Ted Bonner, Director of Business Development at Eaton, and Jim Tessier, Eaton Software Product Manager. Today's webcast will provide both an overview of VMware's vRealize Operations Manager, or VROPS, and a quick view on how VROPS can manage Eaton power devices. Before we start, I have a few housekeeping items I'd like to cover. At the top right of your screen, you should see a widget for our resource list containing information worth checking out. If your resource list widget does not appear, you can open it by pressing the green resource icon at the bottom of the portal. Also, you should see a Q&A widget on the right side directly beneath the resource list. If your Q&A widget is minimized, you can open it by pressing the red Q&A icon at the bottom of the portal. Please use this feature to submit questions throughout the webcast. Each question is submitted privately to the Eaton team and will be answered at the end of the presentation. If for some reason we do not get to your question, we will certainly follow up afterwards. After the VMware section of the presentation, there will be a poll question that we encourage you to answer. I will point this out when it's time. This webcast is being recorded, and within 24 hours, you should receive the on-demand recording to access and share. And now, I will hand it over to Chandra, Jim, and Ted.
Hello, this is Chandra Pathuri. I lead product management for vRealize Operations at VMware. What we're going to talk about is what is vRealize Operations, how it is benefiting our customers in managing their infrastructure, and what is the value of combining Eaton's capabilities into vRealize Operations so administrators can proactively understand what is the capacity in the data center, how to better place clusters within the data center with the integration that we're doing with Eaton. So at a high level, vRealize Operations is the leader in managing virtual infrastructure. It enables administrators to manage and operate their virtual infrastructure. Essentially, when administrators will be able to understand what are the key things that they need to care about, what are the things that they need to care about in the future, and how to operate the data center in an efficient manner. A lot of customers have derived benefits by just implementing vRealize Operations. A number of customers have, you get almost 70% gains in productivity from simplified performance and incident management and change management tasks. You get about 30% reduction in resource consumption from right-sizing and reclaiming or provision capacity. When we say or provision capacity, it's about CPU, memory, storage, and with Eaton's integration, you will be able to reclaim some of the power and data center space as well. So that's some of the things that we will talk about through this presentation. And in addition, there are various capabilities in the product that allow customers to comply with ID policies and regulations as well. So what does vRealize Operations do? And vRealize Operations enables customers to understand what is happening in their infrastructure, what is the health of their infrastructure, what are the immediate things that the administrators need to worry about, and how to troubleshoot a problem in a fast time to resolution. In addition, vRealize Operations enables administrators to understand what is the risk in their infrastructure, meaning are there problems that they need to worry about at a future point, such as they're going to run out of capacity either in a cluster or in storage, or potentially in a data center rack space, or in power with the Eaton's integration that we're doing now. And the third aspect is how efficiently can I run? So it actually tells you what is the wastage that is in the environment, what is the overcapacity in the CPU, memory, storage, and how you can reclaim some of that capacity in the process-derived savings. So, and one of the key things about vRealize Operations is that it has the ability to understand data from various sources. It can correlate events. It can it has analytics that are built into the system through which it can up-level this information of that the administrators need to care about now or later or in the future, right? And this is different from what's happening today. In today's world, essentially you have many different consoles through which you get alerts, and there is a lot of finger pointing that goes on between different teams within the data center. And what vRealize Operations does is it basically can collect data from your virtual infrastructure, your storage devices, network devices, as well as your operating systems and applications, and now with Eaton's integration from data center infrastructure management as well. So you could actually visualize a potential problem at the either in the network or possibly even with some kind of an alarm or an alert that's going to come from your power system could trigger, you'll be able to visualize a particular problem in your application. So you get to see that end-to-end view from the application down to the network. So as an example, if a user complains that his email or her email is slow, typically that goes into the help desk, and multiple people tend to work on that problem. With vRealize Operations, you get the visibility as to why the email is slow. Is it a problem in the Exchange server, or is it a problem in the VM or storage or network? And that provides the fast time to value. So why does data center infrastructure management matter, right? Why does this Eaton integration matter? So as we all know, in most organizations, there is always a challenge in terms of finding capacity in the data center. It is not that difficult to go buy the servers or and the blades, but it's always difficult to find enough power to power up these servers and storage. So getting visualization into understanding what capacity is in the data center, physical capacity, meaning the power and cooling, as well as rack space, allows customers to understand how to proactively plan their power and cooling needs as well as the data center space. Right. And with the integration with vRealize Operations, that capacity visualization can be gained, and in the process you could actually understand when and how to procure capacity to proactively meet the demands of the business. So with this integration with vRealize Operations, what customers can visualize is a common user experience that maps the application to the virtual machine all the way down to the information that Eaton provides, so that the administrators can correlate the events all the way down to the infrastructure. And one of the things that, and the reason why Eaton was able to integrate is vRealize Operations provides rich APIs and SDKs that enables partners to integrate with vRealize Operations, and in the process create an ecosystem of partners to work with vRealize Operations. We believe that the Eaton integration provides considerable value to vRealize Operations in terms of providing visibility into data center infrastructure. So that's Dave. Can I pass it over to you?
That's great. Thank you so much, Andra. So now it's time for today's poll question, as I mentioned earlier. You should see the question and answer choices on your screen. If you could just take a moment to answer the question, and we'll see the results on the next slide. Okay, thank you very much for answering. Here's the results. And next I'm going to pass it over to Jim Tessier. He is the Eaton Software Product Manager.
All right, Dave, thanks very much. And I'd like to talk for about 5 minutes about what is the value that Eaton's Intelligent Power Manager brings to the data center. I break the value into two pieces. One is business continuity, meaning that our goal is to keep mission-critical workloads running even in the event of a power or of an environmental disruption. For instance, if the utility power is out, or you lose the A side or B side in your rack, or even if a rack goes over the high temperature limit. We make IPM, which is short for Intelligent Power Manager, such that you can do your own configurations depending on what the alarms get. And the second thing is for ease of use. We get into, or actually plug in the dashboards, like the vCenter dashboard, and as you see, we're about to become a partner with the ecosystem, the vRealize operations. So this goal is to help data center managers such that they can manage the IT stuff and our facilities, power stuff from the same page. All right, so I'd like to start off with the business continuity. With IPM, you can configure when there's a power outage or a temperature over the high limit to turn off virtual machines, and you could configure it to turn off or to take the virtual machines, turn them off, and then you can take what's remaining and reshuffle them to other servers. So you empty out as many servers as you can. And it's very similar to VMware's distributed power manager that they have to increase the efficiency. The goal is to use less power. So in this example that I'm going to show you here in a minute, we're running 10 servers. We're running an Eaton 9PX, and it's running at 5 kW. So in the event of a power loss, what's going to happen is IPM will turn off non-critical virtual machines. It's going to consolidate the rest of the running virtual machines on fewer servers and then shut servers down. So in this example, we fixed it so that one half of the servers could shut off. So since we started out at 5 kW with 10 servers, we're down to 2.5 kW or kilowatts with 5 servers, therefore taking the battery runtime from 10 minutes to 25 minutes. And then on our second feature of business continuity is we initiate a planned migration with VMware Site Recovery Manager. And what happens there is the Site Recovery Manager works in a planned migration mode, which means that when it's triggered or it's initiated, the first thing that happens is the disaster recovery site syncs up to the primary site. And once that happens, there is no data loss. If you had to restart a data center at current time when the backup was last night, you lose all the transactions in between. So using VMware's planned migration mode of Site Recovery Manager, we avoid that data loss. So it'll look something like this. So when the power goes out, you're going to take the battery that's still remaining on your primary site, and you're going to use that time, synchronize the backup site in a prioritized mode, meaning the highest priority virtual machines go first, then the second and third and so forth as you develop your recovery plan. And our third feature of business continuity is power capping. It's not on a slide, but it's very simple. It's when there's a power outage, we send a command to a server to throttle back. So if the server is running at 500 watts initially, you get a power outage, we can throttle that back to maybe 250 or 300 watts. Therefore, you save battery capacity, or if you're running on a generator, you lose less of the generator. It's not running as hard. So on the ease of use, you'll see two dashboards here. The one on the left is our integration to the vSphere web client. Ours, you can see in the lower right side, which is power source, that's what we call a widget. So our widget is logged into vCenter, or it's plugged into the vCenter dashboard. On the right side, you're seeing a standard user interface for the vRealize operations. And as Chandra said, it does have a health, risk, and efficiency component. The little green squares under the health, each of those represents an application, a virtual machine, any type of device like a server storage. And now they also will represent your power devices. So if you have a problem with the power device, the one green square that represents a power device will turn yellow or red. So I'd like just to show you just 3 or 4 quick screenshots of what you can expect to see. Our integration with our management pack is about maybe 3 or 4 weeks out. We're in the final throes of getting this into the certification. But the first one that we show you shows on the left side, we select a UPS, and then on the far right side, it gives you some attributes of what the UPS is. You get the total power, in this case it's 7,200 watts. It tells you what is the current demand, which is 3,700 watts, and at the bottom, it tells you how much of capacity is remaining. And VROPS will do the math, and it'll tell you that you have 48% left of battery capacity. On the next slide, what I'm showing is percent load. And the percent load is what percentage of your UPS total power is used at any point in time. And you can see that we continue sampling these. This was August 27th at 2 in the morning through 8:45 in the morning. And you see that we averaged in the mid-50s of percent load, but we did log a low and a high during the time, the low being 51% and the high being 56%. And the third screenshot here shows remaining runtime. Now, this is probably not typical. We're looking at a 900-minute runtime. That's 15 hours. But anyway, just to show the point, you're getting all this time. You're pulling continually, and you're graphing these numbers all the way through time. Again, it was in August 27th, the morning hours, and we did log a low of 856 minutes of runtime remaining, and we logged a high of 975. So the last thing I want to show you that is if there is a problem with the UPS, it's going to change the badge color of the health and the risk part. So what we're showing here is we forced the UPS to go near 100% of its capacity, and that drove the health badge to a red color, and it gives you an alert underneath that calls it the overload. The risk is also shown as non-green. In this case, it's a yellow, so it will remain there up until someone fixes it or adds more capacity such that you won't have the overloads out into the future. So with all this information, I believe that the Eaton integration and us bringing in the facility stuff for the first time into VMware's vRealize is a good thing, and I think it's going to be very advantageous for the data center managers that use this. So with that, I want to turn it over to Ted Bonner.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Thanks for joining us today. And what Jim asked me to kind of talk a little bit about is the commercialization of what this means. In other words, what we're actually seeing at the customers. What am I hearing out there when I'm actually talking to customers relative to some of the things that we have as far as integration and power. And of course, the cloud always comes up. So, the question of why do I need power if I'm moving to the cloud? And where does power play into my technology or my plan and strategy when I'm moving to the cloud? And in fact, it does, in the sense that, not only do you have to make sure, your colo or service provider will have the right service levels as it relates to power and be able to see some of the things that Jim and Chandra have talked about today, but also, the switches that are back into your, on-prem data center become more critical. Data needs to be transferred faster, and in those network closets, those switches are faster, and the power that's required in those switches become more critical and become larger. So, network closets are becoming a big play and very important when we move to the cloud or move to a service provider and start outsourcing. So I want you to remember that and think about that as far as, power as it relates to the movement of the cloud and moving to a network closet. The other is business continuity. Jim talked about some of the features that we have associated with moving workloads around and things we could do as far as load shedding within the vCenter and with VMs. That may require you to have more power or backup in your environment. So, it does take time to actually move VMs. And so when you move VMs and you set a policy to move VMs based on power anomalies in your data center or on your network, you have to account for the backup time that's required to do that in the event of a power outage. So those are two areas that, from a commercial standpoint, you may want to think about as it relates to some of the changes in the way we approach data center and power management and our power management integration with VMware products. The next is budget. If you're on this call and you're not a power person, you may say, well, power is not part of my budget, facilities worry about that. But that's kind of what we're trying to do today, is to show you that there is value in power, and the work that Jim and Chandra have done brings it upstream and more intelligent as part of the equation. So even though you may not be involved in the selection of the UPS or the selection of the power infrastructure, it actually does become more important as it relates to your overall management scheme across your data center, whether that's a data center using the cloud or distributed environment, what have you. Power is becoming more critical, and with our integrations into the VMware platforms, it makes it so much easier and more intelligent to manage. Lastly, I wanted to touch a little bit on some of the alliance work that we've been doing. Not only have we been working with VMware for many, many years, but we're also working with some of the other primary IT providers out there in the marketplace, heavily in Cisco, heavily in some of the other compute and storage vendors as well, EMC, NetApp. So when you think about VMware and virtualization, it's across platforms. So it's not only are we working with VMware to actually drive more integration, we're also working with those hardware vendors. So, you have too much to worry about as it relates to the core infrastructure that you manage and setting your policies on where you want to take your business. Let us worry about validating the power, both from a virtualization standpoint and from a hardware standpoint, and that's what we're out busy doing. So we're not only meeting with VMware on a regular basis to see how we can drive more integrations and value with power and our integrations with our power management software, but we're doing the same on the hardware side. So just wanted to let you know that's going, and we want to make sure you don't worry about that. We'll worry about it, and it makes it easier for you to do that. We're testing this out. We're getting pre-validated designs with some of these hardware vendors, so there's less for you to worry about. So with that, I think we're going to open it up for questions, Dave, and I'll hand it back to you, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Ted, and thank you, Chandra and Jim, for presenting. And that's basically the presentation. So like Ted said, let's open it up to some questions. So I've got one here that I think, Chandra, you would probably be the best to answer. The question reads, how readily is vRops being adopted, and is it at a rate that VMware is comfortable with?
Of course, vRealize operations is heavily used in the market today. I wouldn't name the number of customers. We are the leading vendor in the space to manage and operate your infrastructure. So we have just like vSphere got adopted so heavily, vRealize operations is also adopted in the marketplace quite heavily. And what's the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
The second part was, is it at a rate that VMware is comfortable with?
Of course. It's VMware's management business unit is on the foundation of vRealize operations, and it is a very sizable business for VMware, and there is continuous investment in vRealize operations to expand the capabilities of vRealize operations to help our customers plan and operate their software-defined data centers as well as their physical data centers.
Great. Thank you for the answer. We have a second one come in. I think Jim probably would be the best to handle this. What are some attributes of UPSs that vRops can monitor?
All right. So what you can see is there's like different sections that we have in our tree of options. So we have something called active power. You click on active power, it's going to show you the power used at all the times, and it's going to go back, and it's going to give you those on a timely basis as those are pulled. And there's a grouping under battery. Under battery, we have remaining charge capacity, and we have remaining time. So you've got two different ways of looking at, depends how comfortable they are with each one, which do they prefer to manage their systems. And then under the system, under the tree, there's a system, then input and output. So we're able to see on both input and output. You can see the input voltage, input frequency, input power on both input and output. And then the percent load that we have as I showed in that diagram.
Okay, thank you, Jim. We've got one more question here. Again, I think, Chandra, you may be the best to answer this. please explain the vSphere optimization assessment?
I see. vSphere optimization assessment enables our customers to see what are the cost savings opportunities that they can get from their existing vSphere implementations. So essentially, by deploying vRealize operations, it can tell you where the wastage is, how much of your infrastructure is over-provisioned, how many VMs can you right-size, based on the performance that is needed by the application of the business, how much of the resources that you can take away from that virtual machine. As an example, oftentimes customers provision their infrastructure for the worst-case scenario or for the peak load, right? And vRealize operations is the ability to look at your historical performance, historical utilization, and from that, vRealize Ops can tell you what is the amount of CPU and memory you would need. Oftentimes developers or the application folks ask for the highest possible CPU and memory. For as an example, you could provision an application for 10 VMs with 8 vCPUs and 500 gigabytes of RAM or something to that effect. But in reality, it could only be using 10% of what it is provisioned for. So the other 90% could be potential savings. So what this program does is it actually evaluates the utilization of your infrastructure and tells you how much of the resources you can save and what are the cost savings that you can derive from it.
All right, great answer. Thank you so much. Well, that's about all the time we have for today, so thank you everybody for joining. Be on the lookout for a follow-up email from Eaton. Feel free to pass it along to colleagues who were not able to attend. So this concludes our live event. Again, thank you for joining and have a great day.